Hello friends, so I am going to show you guys the setup and increase section on the Cottagecore Throw. So what I have here is some fingering weight yarn. This is a nice round tightly spun yarn, and I am going to show you the setup. You start with your slip knot and then you do 3 chain stitches. Let me pull some yarn out of here. 3 chain stitches. So 1, 2, 3. Now you can kind of see how I have 2 stitches here. I am going to half double crochet through both of those. So 1 half double crochet through the first one and 1 half double crochet through the second one, the one right next to my slip knot. You don't ever crochet through the slip knot, as those of you who are experienced crocheters know that, but some of you maybe don't. Okay, I'm pulling through. Okay, so I have my setup here, and it's looking pretty good. Now I am going to chain 1 for the first step of the increase row. So you will see we have 2 half double crochet stitches and 1 chain stitch back here. Since we started with 3 stitches, we half double crocheted 2. Those are 2 stitches, and then that first chain is a stitch as well. You can see that these stitches almost look like a reverse S. Instead of like your classic V crochet look, and you can see them here. I'm gonna try not to cover them, they're awfully tiny. So we have our first chain stitch there that we just made. We have 1 stitch here, 1 stitch here, and then this goofy little blob back here, and that's our chain from the previous row. You'll see that the half double crochets look almost like reverse S's. So we are going to go through the bottommost loop. We're not going to go through these 2 top V's, we're going to go through this one. And we are going to go through that very first stitch. Normally when you crochet something, and sometimes patterns don't even put this in, you chain 1 and then you skip this first stitch because your chain 1 becomes your first stitch. In this case, we are increasing by 2 every single row. So we will be going through this very first stitch and this bottom loop right here. So I'm going to half double crochet once through there. And since we're going through the first loop, we're doing it's called the brioche stitch. And then we will be going through that loop one more time. So those are our first 3 stitches are chain and 2 half double crochet for this one. And then you see our next one got a little warped. And I'm going to try to show you without my fingers getting in here. But if you pull it enough, you can see your bottom leg here. And this is the part that people sometimes mess up on, because I have had people test this pattern. And this is the one part that people get the most mixed up on, is finding that last stitch. So with fingering weight yarn, it can be a little more difficult to see. That's why I did the photos in the pattern in a worsted weight. But you can see that this is the V here, and this one right here is our bottom leg. Our first one kind of pulled everything backwards, our first 2 stitches, so that helped. So we're going to go through this guy. 1 half double crochet there. So we worked our first 2 stitches, and now we have our last third, our chain stitch. So you'll see it kind of looks a little goofy, and it is 3 strands, and I just go around the whole thing. I'll half double crochet through that whole thing because it just gives it a nice clean edge. Some people go through the half double, well, not the half double, I'm sorry, go through the chain stitch like we did when we set up, but I, again, like the clean edge of going around the whole thing. So we are gonna flip it and we're gonna start again. We're gonna chain 1. And now as we're moving along, we can see a little bit better. We can see our first stitch here. We're gonna go through that guy twice again. Twice through that one. And then we have 3 half double crochets to go through still. 3 brioche stitches from the previous row. So we're going to go through 1. Oh, and I split the yarn. Happens a lot in crochet sometimes. Go through the second one left. And then we're going to go through the last one. And sometimes this last one, again, is hard to see. And sometimes you might mistake it for a chain. We are going to go through it. You have to kind of pull it a little bit to see. But you can see it. This down here, that little leg right there is the top of our reverse S. This one's the middle, and this is the bottom we're going through. Well, bottom, front, you know what I mean. And again, this is always a little finicky in the beginning because you're starting with something so small. Okay, and we worked our last half double crochet, but we still have one more stitch. We have our chain from the previous row, and we can't forget that. If we don't work that guy, then we're in trouble. So it looks like a V right here. But again, there are 3 legs in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to yarn over to start my half double crochet, and I'm going to go under those. It technically is at the bottom of your stitch you just worked. And it looks like a goofy little bundle, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you see here, you can see those 2 V's right there. That's your chain, and we're going through it because if you don't, you're not going to get the right shape on your blanket. So we're going under those and through. One more half double crochet. And you can see you're already starting to get a right triangle. You know the pattern is right if you're getting a right triangle. Right triangle is a perfect perpendicular edge here, and then one really long leg edge there. Okay, so I'm gonna chain 1 and start over again. 2 stitches in this first stitch. And again, this is so tiny and finicky in the beginning, but that's fingering weight yarn for you. And I need a little bit more yarn. Then go through 1 here. Go through 1 here. So basically you want to always remember that that chain 1 does count as a stitch. So you have to work it at the end of your row because that's the chain 1 from your previous row. You have to work that stitch, and you have to work your last S stitch. So here, it looks like this is my last S stitch right here, but it's not. This is the second to last one. This goofy little bundle of stitches right here is technically our last S. So you might have to tug it out a little bit and look. See, you can see 1 leg back here, 1 here, and 1 here. So I'm going to work that second to last reversed S. Work this one, and I'm pulling it out. You can see I'm pulling it a little bit with my fingernail to see it. This leg we're going to go through. And then we have 1 more chain. See, our chain stitch is right there, right below that one we just worked. So we're going to go down, and the good thing is that normally when I go underneath it, it grabs that 3rd prong. If it doesn't, you know, it's not a big deal. And you only get 2 of them there. It's not a huge deal. There we go. But I like to get all 3 pieces of it because again, it gives you the cleanest edge. Okay, and see, look, it's starting to look like a little blanket. But yes, that is the trickiest part, is to make sure you are grabbing those last 2 stitches. One will not look like a stitch, and one definitely doesn't look like a stitch, but you need to grab both. So I chained 1, and let's do it one more time. Go through our first stitch 2 times. Then we work all the way to the end, always going through that bottommost loop. Oop. Sorry, my hands are a little shaky. When I'm working with finicky things, it happens. I wish I had like perfectly steady hands for you guys, but unfortunately no. So this is how we're doing it. And I will stop right before that second to last W. And sometimes you're going to have to really look at it. Like, so this is the second to last one right here. And this one is nice and open, our very last, well, I called it a W, but reverse S, our very last reverse S is nice and open here. And you can also tell because there isn't anything that looks even remotely like that afterwards. It is that weird chain stitch. So you can see that weird chain stitch is right. It's right here. It's these 2 stitches. So I'm going to go through that second to last S again. Now pull it open and grab this bottommost leg of our last S. And don't forget to do one more through the chain, which is technically right below, and so it'll pull it like this. And there you go. That's our little itty bitty start. If you guys would like this done on a larger yarn, a tutorial, I can do that. But I will let you know that you may want to do a tiny swatch with a larger needle, or a larger hook, I should say. Sorry, usually I'm doing knitting videos. A larger hook and a thicker yarn, like a DK, a nice round like 4-ply DK or worsted, a very smooth yarn, and you will be able to see those end stitches way, way, way easier. The problem is with fingering weight is it's so hard to see those end stitches, but that's how that goes. Once you know what to look for, it starts to become easier and easier and almost second nature. And don't feel too discouraged, because this is something that I severely struggled with for the longest time when I was a kid and learning to crochet. I would make things with the wonkiest edges. So I'm going to do this one more time for us, just for old time's sake. I am going to find this bottom loop of our very first stitch, the front loop. Gonna go through that guy, and if you make a few little mistakes of where you're actually putting your hook, that's not a big deal. The big deal is that you get the right number of increases in every row, because if you don't, and then of course I forgot to go through this one first stitch 2 times because I'm talking. Let's fix that. If you don't get the right shape, your blanket is not going to be a square. It's going to be a weird diamond shape. So we don't want a weird diamond shaped blanket. We want a nice square straight edged blanket. So let me go through these guys. And I am working kind of slow, but that's okay. Slow and steady wins the race and gets a blanket that looks right. I'm sorry this video is so long, but it's a very hard thing to show. Okay, so now that we're getting towards the end, and before I've started to work my last few stitches, you can see it a little bit easier. We have an S stitch here, here, and one right here. It is, as one friend said, water falling over the edge. So as we work this one, it'll get tugged and it'll be harder to see. But for right now, we can see it really well. And that's how we know where to look for it. Okay, so as you'll see, it's going to get tugged a little bit tighter as I work through these. But it's still here. It's still right here. So we're going to go through the bottommost S of it, and it's really, this one's a really nice one to see. You can see the S here, here, and here. We're going to go through right there. And then we know we have a chain left. So we are going to go down through our little chain. Stitch right here. Work that guy, pull it through, and there you have it. I hope this helped, and if you guys need another video, I know this wasn't like the most professional, polished video, but I decided to just throw this together for you guys. I can always do another one, but I hope that helped, and remember you want to increase by 2 every single row.